Hello, everybody. My name is Ana Rezende, and in this podcast, I will share my transformational journey to become a health coach. In each episode, I will address a different subject that impacts our health, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. Because I've learned that being healthy means being in balance. If you would like to make amazing discoveries, improve your health, get inspired, and yet find sustainable ways to live and help the planet, tune in. You are in the right place. I'm your host, Ana Rezende, and Good is What Makes You Feel Well is Mama Terra's podcast.
Toma banho de cachoeira, abraça uma pessoa amiga, corre na chuva, escala a montanha, contempla a vista, transcende, levita.
Today's episode is a powerful conversation about how our daily choices and our environment impact our hormone health and fertility. I am joined by the amazing Fulden Wernli, a board-certified hormone health coach, founder of the Life in Sync method, and a passionate advocate for women reclaiming their natural rhythms. Fulden blends cutting-edge science with ancient wisdom, intuition, and bioharmonizing to help women ditch synthetic hormones, sync with their cycles, and eliminate frustrating symptoms like PMS, acne, and stubborn weight gain. But her work goes beyond the physical. Fulden is here to shift mindsets, awaken synchronicity, and guide women to live in harmony with the rhythm of life itself. Whether through her transformational coaching or her inspiring workshops, her mission is clear: empower women to thrive naturally. In today's conversation, Fulden shares her story and knowledge, so get ready to reconnect with your inner rhythm. Please welcome Fulden Wernli. Hello, good morning, Fulden.
Good morning, Anna. How are you today?
Welcome to Good is What Makes You Feel Well.
Thank you very much. And what an on-point name for your podcast.
Yeah. For us to start our conversation, I would like to ask you what, in this moment of your life, makes you feel well?
I was having a conversation with myself because a couple of days ago it was full moon, and I always take a moment for myself to reflect. I'm not sure if you're also familiar, there is this trend going on Instagram and on TikTok. People are actually writing a letter to their younger self. So I participated in that as well. And I think that full reflection gave me an even bigger meaning of like, what makes me feel good today? It was illuminated by the full moon is living in synchronicity with myself and with nature. I realized that I lived all my life, or I would say majority of my life, disconnected from my body and from the nature. And now that I stepped into that really profound meaning of life, what it means, I'm realizing, wow, how much I came and how much I expanded already.
So what I'm hearing is that being in sync with your body and with nature makes you feel well now.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting because you said you wrote the letter to your younger self. And this is something really powerful for me too. When I think back to my younger self and how much I could have helped her from now. Just interesting. But how this concept of feeling well has evolved throughout your life?
This is a very loaded question. And I'm going to go back to, I think, where it started, because I was born in Turkey. And living in a country where woman was suppressed, I was exposed to many limiting beliefs about my body and what she is and or she's not capable of. And majority of the beliefs that have been taught to me is like she's not capable of doing much.
Mm.
So growing up with that, I never really believed what a powerhouse we are. That just taught me that if I'm not going to get pregnant, my fertility is useless. It's almost like burden to me because every month I was going through these debilitating pains and fatigue and really heavy periods that would prevent me from living my life. So having been taught that, okay, you know what, this is only for pregnancy and it has no other benefits to you, what I learned to really adjust my life to like, how can I really shut down this part of my life until I need it? So what I've done, because I didn't understand the power of my body, I wasn't there to take care of it and I wasn't there to nurture it. And I like to call, like refer to as her because I now know that she is a big part, she is a big part of me. And rather than just accepting everything, I am working alongside with her like as an ally. So that's why I like to call her her. You will hear it. So going back to it, but once I was seeing her as an enemy, I just said, okay, you know what? I'm going to really reach out for those quick fixes, whatever is going to give me this temporary relief, that I'm going to go for it. And that's how my birth control journey has started when I was exposed to it. And it did wonders to me until it didn't, because I got pregnant on birth control.
Mm.
So, with that said, I think if I would have realized how powerful my cycles are and how much it resembles the nature, all these beautiful seasons, instead of trying to ignore and shut her down, I would have embraced her and really spread her powers into my life to become the woman that I am today. But as you mentioned earlier, like on my 20s, rather than I ended up living my 20s on external validation, really looking for that appreciation that I never, almost like I didn't allow to give myself. And that would have made my life a lot easier in a sense that I am so happy that, I end up having a son. Now he is 12 years old. Of course, he is a blessing in my life. So I will say that I do believe everything happens for a reason and everything happens to reach our higher self and highest self in a way. So I wouldn't become the woman as I'm today if I didn't go through all those struggles. But what happened is it got to a point that I couldn't even understand myself. I was in this really depressive mode. And during that time, PCOS wasn't really known either. That's the polycystic ovarian syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
which can cause a lot of stress in the body. It's necessarily insulin resistance, but it wasn't very well known. So you don't necessarily get a diagnosis. So you're living in this era of like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, everything I'm trying is not really working. And you're trying to reach for every fad diet, thinking that it's going to give you some resolution. You're trying to listening to noises from outside and bringing everything into your life. But one thing that I wasn't doing, asking myself, what is it that I need to heal? What does my body need more of or less of? That was never the question until I moved to Switzerland. And I think that
Mm.
nature really comes into play right here because I was never connected to nature until I moved to Switzerland and realized how everyone over there lives so connected with nature.
Is that true? I
And
didn't know that.
yeah, one difference for me, like it was mind-blowing. I was living in Miami, and when I would visit a friend, the first thing they would offer, what would you like to drink? As an alcoholic beverage, or
Uh-huh.
maybe even a soda. And when I moved to Switzerland, you go to a neighbor house or a friend house, and the first thing they offer you a tea. What tea? I was like, are you guys kidding me right now? Like, we're gonna drink tea? But then once I start to drink it and, acclimate it in those habits, I realized how my mood started to change, how I was actually able to hear what my body was craving more of or less of. And that was a really turning point for me.
That is so wonderful. It's so wonderful. It's interesting that you touched tea and how the tea gives us this connection with nature because, like the same thing with food, of course, because it's an infusion of leaves with water and then the warmth of the water and the power of the water with the power of the plant that we are putting inside. It's the same thing that I think about food. If it's something that is nature made, we are just putting nature inside. And I think the tea has this similarity with food. And yes, it is nature healing and giving us what we need. Some people now have tea ceremonies for healing.
Mhm.
Have you heard about this?
Yes, absolutely. They're using a variety of, I would say, and then loose teas, right? We're not talking about really having a plastic bag putting into our hot water. What they use for these ceremonies, there are really loose tea, just go directly in the glass and water without the microplastics. And then, yeah, the impacts of it is just tremendous how much clarity and creativity that it brings that you're able to speak your truth or reflect so freely, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me more about your journey. You said you was born in Turkey and then you moved at some point to Switzerland, but then you were at Miami at some point. So how is that?
Well, I have moved to United States at the age of 20.
Mm,
From the young age, I had just had a dream to live abroad.
okay.
And at the time, I have never realized what I was really trying to do is escape the religion part of things and not being
Um,
free. And that's coming from, again, being a woman in a country that you're not necessarily valued. And of course, there's Hollywood propaganda as well when you're watching a young age all those beautiful Hollywood movies and people are free, there are no judgment, they can wear whatever they want to. While I was in Turkey, not necessarily, I wasn't even actually allowed to use tampons for my own good because there is a really restrictive religion practices, and that is against not respect your body. But I don't
mm,
say that as a respect because this is my body and I should be able to make the decision that I want to. So having to live in that environment always made me want to just save myself and go out somewhere. And I didn't realize that it was religion because for a long time I wanted to be a Christian because I was seeing Christian women are so much free than Muslim women. And
okay.
I'm not sure if you're familiar growing up like at the 80s and 90s, you didn't necessarily see a lot of atheists or like a people who are just spiritual but not believe in religion. Everybody really had a religion. It's either you were Jewish or you were Christian or you were Muslim and sort. So me coming to United States and starting to live a free life, I would say, compared to how I grew up, that made me realize it was never about religion, but it was about being valued as an individual person.
Mhm.
But what happened was I still wasn't aware of my body is capable of because I think we are so lucky right now that we have access to all these research about women and what it means to have a menstrual cycle. And every year these research are now getting more and more, where in the 2000s we had very limited access. So what has been given to us was a quick fixes really to fix this and as a band-aid. And I guess that's what happened when I moved to United States. I realized that I don't need this side of my body at the time. And that was the time that I was giving birth control. And then I lived almost 10 years in United States. I would say my life changed tremendously. My nutrition changed tremendously.
Ah, I bet.
Coming from a Mediterranean diet to United States. But don't get me wrong, I loved every second of it.
I bet you did.
But I didn't realize the impacts of it because that was another even though like in Turkey or in the United States, it didn't really matter when you went to your doctor's office, they didn't necessarily ask you, okay, you're having heavy periods, you are cramping, you're not really feeling yourself. What does your lifestyle look like? No one really asked you that question.
Never.
Yeah, so in a sense that realizing the culture differences, that was huge for me. I think I'm very privileged to live both sides.
Mm.
And then what happened is I met my husband and he is Swiss and he refused to live in the United States.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he's very structured, and in Switzerland everything works like a clock. And Miami is just on the opposite side of spectrum. But I do enjoy being here. I love Miami. So what I said that, okay, you know what? I'm going to move to Switzerland and give it a shot. And I'm so happy that I did because once me and my son we moved to Switzerland, that's when my life changed. My health and wellness have been redefined. And I guess that's where my health and wellness coaching journey has started. So I'm
Okay.
forever grateful for that.
Okay, so you took the course when you were living in Switzerland then?
Yes.
Okay.
I used to go on hikes, and I was always been an ocean girl. I always thought that oceans are so much better than mountains until I got to meet the mountains and the forest. I realized, wow, they're both different powerhouses. Ocean where it just cleanse everything, and the forest is just more give you clarity of to really take everything in about yourself. I think what happened was when I moved there, I realized there are 4 seasons. And not that, I didn't know that, but living in Miami for 10 years, you really, I guess, start to oversight things. And once I dive deep into the winter and then realizing there is spring and the summer and then the fall, I realize my body works exact same way. My menstrual cycle is my winter, where everything goes inward in nature, and I need to rest and really take care of me. And then there comes the spring, and you start seeing the leaves are changing, everything starts to blossom, the cherry trees. Oh my God, looks incredible. And I realized that's how I feel on my follicular phase with excitement. My body starts to wake up. And then there comes the summer. Summers are really beautiful there too for hiking because it doesn't really get so hot. I mean, now it does with the climate change. I'm not going to lie because everything is really changing again. But then I realized that's how I feel on my ovulation. I am so happy and excited to meet people. I want to be here and there and really travel to make the most of the energy that I get. And then the fall, in my luteal phase, my energy starts to dip a little bit, not a whole lot, but I realize how beautiful the colors change again. So once I made that connection that we are not separate from nature, we are in one, and even our rhythms work the same way. That was my like a mind-blowing experience. I wasn't on psychedelics, but I felt like I was on psychedelics. I didn't even need the tea ceremony, it was just washed over me.
Yeah, yeah, it's incredible how we grew up with this idea that we are just people with minds. And I think since Descartes declared that I think, therefore I am, we just internalized that saying and we started differentiate us as a species from the animals because we are able to think. So in that moment, everything just went downhill. Then what the mind creates is just taking us further apart from nature. And this disconnection just lets us feel lost. Like you said, you didn't have any connections with your body because we were never taught that. I'm older than you, but I was a teenager in the 80s. I have never listened anything good about menstruation, about this being our power. It was just shame. You don't talk about this, or I just grew up with this shame. Never in my life I've heard that the power was related or we were in sync with the nature cycles or anything like that. So, like you. And I also started birth control in a very young age, and I did it for a long time. I did not get pregnant with it, but it took me longer to get pregnant after I quit it. And I now know the impacts that taking it for so long had in my health, because it also disconnects us from our cycles, and besides all the other side effects, right? So it's just how society grew separating us from our essence. And it's so wonderful that you found that in the mountains in Switzerland. And what a place for you to have that realization, right?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate all my life, despite the fact that I had many unfortunate events.
Yeah. Oh, it's wonderful. So you told me about the tea being one of the biggest differences between the US and Switzerland. What about food?
Oh, well, I actually made a list of what are the differences, especially when I first moved there, because it was day and night. Things that I would have never considered brought to my consciousness. And I think my mindfulness practices started with, again, connecting to nature as well. Once you start realizing there's so much we can pay attention to, you can never take it back. You can never unsee the things that you see. I think one of the really major things that I noticed about food, where they are coming from,
Mm.
the price tags. And what Swiss people do is, let's say this papaya is coming from Brazil, they may not actually purchase it because they realize how much carbon prints that it's living. And I met people have never been on an airplane in order to prevent the carbon. So that's another side of the coin. I'm like, you never been on an airplane? They're like, no, we refuse to because you know what it does to our environment.
Wow.
Yeah, so realizing that, okay, you know what, I can actually see where the food's coming from. So for me, I wasn't extremist that way just because I love papaya.
Me too.
Because I'm very selfish at that point, it could be, but it's okay to be selfish sometimes. But what I realized that, for example, there are some countries and their agriculture is not really up to the standards of organic. There are maybe not necessarily checks and balances. And I knew which these countries are. And when I would see the food is coming from that country, I would just avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
And that gave me an empowerment of just, okay, now I'm not just looking at the price tag, but I have a different measurement system to see the even select the quality of the food.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really mind-blowing for me.
And do they have lots of local farmers?
Yes, and what they do is they sell that it says Swiss guarantee on it. Anything that is being made in Switzerland, they have such a pride in their products and they label it, and it's usually more because it's a country that is it can be very pricey to grow things because labor is not as effective as I would say like in Mexico, of course. So
Mhm.
they can't necessarily compete. But once you see that that is the Swiss guarantee, you actually don't mind paying more because you know how rigid their systems on food, and you know that there is a control over it. And it's not just the cities, but there are villages, and the villages have their own system to check the quality of the food. So for me, I don't mind paying more knowing that I'm not poisoning myself. I know this food has been grown with love because farmers are also receiving what they deserve, right? They're not underpaid. And I do believe that our energy that really reflects on the nutrients of the food. If a farmer is growing that tomato with love because he knows in return he's fair traded and paid for his own labor, I know he's doing it with much love. And I know that food has a good energy and more nutrition for my body to observe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is my dream come true. Yeah, maybe I should go there.
And then the
Spend
question is,
some time there.
why can we not have this everywhere? Like, why do we even have to label our food organic, right? Like, it's just mind blowing to me. Like, why can we not go back to? And I guess this is also coming from when I was growing up, the packaged food was just something that was luxury. In my city, you had to be an upper middle class or like a wealthy in order to afford packaged goods. And now what we are doing is like a literally backwards. Nowadays, it costs so much more to buy food that is unprocessed, and we are willing to pay a lot more for it, which is so crazy.
Yeah, it is. And I do call this a cycle because everything goes in cycles, right? So we took this turn and we went to this side of industrialized and ultra processed foods because, women went to work and they needed practical things to still be able to cook at home and feed their families. The industry just took this as a big marketing hook to get to the women the practicality of having those packaged foods and pre-made dinners and all that, and we just went with it. And now we are making that turn because now we know how bad that is for us, and then we are closing that cycle and going back to the basics. I always say we are going back to basics because that is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right? So we are supposed to be connected with the land, with the soil, and getting from nature. Nature will provide always. There is no scarcity in nature. And the fear needs to end once we understand that. So that's why I think it's so important for countries like Switzerland leading this path of valuing and advertising somehow that this is the best way to do and valuing the people, because this is what we need to take to other parts of the world and make it the standard, because this is what's going to be better for humanity and for the planet. I love that you had that experience and all. Incredible.
There are so many practices, what I can say for living in the United States, there are still certain things that we can do to support that. For example, just simple as chocolate. I always take a look at if the chocolate has a fair trade emblem on them, because cacao is also, there are a lot of underage workers in there. They're not even necessarily been paying, pennies and cents. So when I see the fair trade, it gives me a warmth while I'm eating it, because I know that I didn't just say, oh, I don't know what to do. This is not in my hand. I'm paying, a few dollars more, and I'm eating with really the ease within myself, knowing that, okay, you know what? I did what I could at this point of my life. And rather than buying 2 or 3, I will be happy to just buy 1 in order to support this fair system for everybody.
Yeah, this is really so important because sometimes people get so overwhelmed not knowing what to do to change the system or to change the way that things are. But when you say that, it's a testament that we do have the power, and we always do have the power, because as consumers, we can stop buying and start buying whatever we want. So if you want to value those companies, those businesses, they're doing the right thing, paying fair wages, not having kids working. We as consumers, we can support the businesses that are doing the right thing. And we can stop buying the ultra processed foods, and eventually they will notice that nobody's buying their products anymore at some point, right? So, and that is so powerful, and that is in our hands. So we do have lots of things that we can do. The same thing we can do with plastics and organic, because if we start buying organic more and more, that is what's going to grow. That is how the market works. So we do have so much that we can do, but people sometimes don't see things that way. So we can recycle everything. We can reuse everything. We can stop buying plastic. We can stop buying packages that are not recyclable. But people sometimes they don't realize how powerful they are.
And what you're saying to me is really with the highlight as a title on the beginning, like heading, mindfulness. If you would just take a moment to look at the ingredient, and this could be the food, it could be the clothes that we are wearing as well, like what does it have inside? Because you may get this shirt that is 100% polyester for $3. And then what are the costs of that, right? Like you're asking yourself, like when I invest $3 on this versus $10 100% cotton, what will be the benefits for my body from a polyester to cotton? And I don't want to say that anymore, like, oh, we don't know. Oh, you know what? In your fingertips, there's this AI called ChatGPT, Gemini, or whatever version that you're using. So we can't really even hide behind the fact that, oh, I didn't know. Like, you could literally take 2 seconds to ask the question, and you will get an essay about like what you should do for your body. So I think if we would, rather than just reaching for everything and asking ourselves, how does this benefit me? How then the second layer will be that how does this benefit environment? If we can just reduce 50% of our choices to put them into a healthier version for ourselves and for this environment, how much of an impact we can create as a globally.
Exactly. Yeah, this is really, really important. And that is for everything, like you said, for everything, all the goods that we buy. That's the whole supply chain impact that we need to consider. Yeah. Yeah, it is just crazy to think how things got that way. And again, going back to that mind that prioritizes money and profit over everything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've been also very fortunate because my husband is an architect, but there is this field, it's called biobiolog. So he's actually the building biologist. That means that he takes a look at the material and builds buildings only as sustainable for nature and for ourselves.
Wow.
Considering that, going back to evolution, we've been sleeping in the forest, right? Outside, outdoors with the trees, with the wood. So when we are now taking a look at all these houses that we are building, they're from materials that really has toxic chemicals like formaldehyde in almost every furniture. So what we are doing is we are buying, like, the house prices are crazy. I know it's crazy everywhere, but in Miami, people buying houses for like $2 million. And when I visit inside, I can smell the toxins for me.
Mm.
Like, how can you now live in this environment without causing stress to your body? Because what we don't also realize that because we used to live outside in the forest and now we are living in this electromagnetic field loaded houses, because everything is also electronic, right? Like you can shut down the windows with the remote control, you can control the AC with remote control, everything is really digital. But everything also increases the electromagnetic field around us. So our body cannot get a break to breathe, saying that, wow, I'm safe. So what my husband does, build houses only from wood, clay, lime, just so that your body, when you get inside, every night, your heart rate reduced by 3 to 3,500 beats.
Wow.
And when you add that up, you receive to 5 to 10 years, because every night when your heart needs to work less 3 to 3,500 beats, you literally receive 5 to 10 years at the end of your years.
Wow. That is amazing.
And I never thought about this before. When I would walk into a house, if I'm renting, to taking a look at it, like, oh my God, it has nice cabinets. It looks really white, looks really good. But I've never asked myself, what material is this? Is it coming from real wood, or is it a knockoff, like a fake, where it's literally a plastic inside? And guess what? Everything that you're breathing this toxicity. And then what your body does, your body is so smart. So she knows, or he knows, how to compensate for that. But then she knows that she's also working overtime And then you're like, oh, you know what? I never felt like myself. My hormones are not working, or like I'm not able to get pregnant. Now we're taking a look at it. 1 in 6 couples, they have fertility problems. And when you see all those scientific evidence, the testosterone have been reduced by 50% since the 1950s, which is really insane. So you ask yourself, it cannot be only food. Yes, the food is a huge determined factor, but what else? You're spending majority of your time at home. So if you're not breathing the good air, if you're not drinking the good water, how do you think that's impacting you?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Wow, this is mind blowing. I have never thought about that in that way.
No.
Never. Yeah, that is a very good point. And what a beautiful work he does. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's incredible.
Talking about the differences, I think he's also very lucky to be born in a country that health and wellness have been a priority since really pre-K, the
Mm.
kindergarten. They had, even when my son went to school 2 years over there, they have mindfulness moments where all the kids gets in a circle and really they meditate for a couple minutes and they have either qigong or yoga movements that they do for their body.
Ah,
And what's incredible is my husband is 38 years old and he said he was doing that when he was in pre-K. So it's not,
wow.
yeah. Here, my son goes to school. We came back because there were a variety of factors that he missed his friends, and it was harder for me to actually, because I didn't speak the language, and it was just much easier here with the network that I have. But we split our time.
Mm.
I tried to go at least 4 to 5 months to live there, and then the rest of it here. And what we are really realizing that, like, my son doesn't even have recess. He has 5 minutes to go from one class to another, and he starts around 8:39, and the school goes until 4, which is mind-blowing to me. It makes no sense. And he was on a debate yesterday, and his debate was that how they should have access to recess, at least for, like, apart from the lunch, that 30 minutes they have to shove their food, really, no mindfulness around that. Like, they should have 15 to 20 minutes just to have conversations with their friends and really realize what's happening in their life. Yeah, so I'm so happy that I'm in a way that my husband was a role model when I moved there, having that awareness that he grew up with. He was able to fill me up with all that knowledge. And I think what I've done is I really scaled that out because I was so impressed and inspired by it. And that's why I ended up doing my certifications and wanted to learn even more hormone health. But now what I'm realizing is I am also now spilling over to my son's life. And that's how the change starts, right? We first change ourselves and everybody around us starts to pick up here and there.
Yeah, that is wonderful. So then you decided for your son to go to school in the US, and then you go on summer breaks to
Yeah.
Switzerland? Okay.
Yeah, what we do is we usually leave at the end of May and we stay until end of August. I go as well more because my son can't really travel when the schools are on, but I tend to go like 2 or 3 more additional months while he is here with his dad. I
Mm-hmm.
would say I'm more luckier because I get to spend more of my time in Switzerland.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What you told me about the schools there, that is my dream come true. That is what I envision for the schools in the future. Yeah, we'll change that
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do believe as well. What we are seeing is a lot of fear mongering, right? But in order things to change, we need to also expose the truth. I love that Carl Jung, which actually is Swiss, the father of psychology, he says that until we make the unconscious conscious, we will call it fate and do the same things over and over again. And I do believe that, like, we first need to expose it, not to be fearful of living, but just to realize that what the change could be once we actually work on all these things.
Yeah.
So I think the school system falls into that as well. Yeah, I don't believe it's going to happen next year or in 10 years maybe, but I do believe eventually that it is bound to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do believe that too. And we need to believe and take one
Yes.
step at a time because we'll change the things eventually, one person at a time, but we will. Yeah. And that is so wonderful. I am so glad that you had the chance to see that with your own eyes. Now I'm dying to go there and experience that school system. That is wonderful. So tell me what led you to specialize in hormonal health and how are you working with those women now?
Thank you for allowing me to answer this because this is, yeah, my true passion is just to talk about all things lifestyle, and what it does is everything leads to hormone health. When we talk about hormone health, you realize that, oh, it's our ovaries, its ability to, get pregnant, but it's a lot more than that. There is the thyroid, there is the pituitary gland. It's like hormones are body as a whole. So once I moved to Switzerland, I was still on birth control, but once I realized how the effects are, then the research started coming up. I'm like, okay, you know what? Do I ignore this and continue living my life? Because I didn't want to get pregnant again. That wasn't just in the cards for me. I didn't necessarily. I already have my son and we were happy. And I was so afraid of like, what if I remove the like IUD at that time and I get pregnant? And I wanted to overcome this fear. And in order to overcome this fear, the knowledge is a power. So that pushed me to learn a lot about woman body, but it's just not about women because we've been known to be hormonal, but men have the same hormones.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So in order to learn one, you can't skip the other one. So I started to get my certification, and what I learned was just it was so simple and it made me so sad and it maddened me because I'm like, wow, I can actually learn about my cycle, know how to achieve or prevent pregnancy with simple steps, just listening to my body, reading the cues of it, what she's telling me, looking at my cervical fluid, looking at really just how round my face that is that day. And I realized, wow, this is so simple. Why we haven't been even taught that? Like, just said hello, women can't understand their body, so let's just give them a pill. That's what I felt like. That we weren't even hold in this capacity of to be able to understand our body is just so much work. And you know what? Yes, it may be in the beginning so much work, but I like to say that it's almost like tying your shoes. When you think about it, when you're learning to tie it, you need to put the right one on the over the left one and make a hoop, and then you need to like when you think about that, just the description of how I will teach you how to tie your shoes, you're like, whoa, this is so overwhelming. I don't want to do it.
Yes.
But now what you do is you don't even take a look at how you're tying. You can do it your eyes closed. And I think our bodies work exactly the same way. Everything is has a challenge in the beginning. And that's was my challenge over there. Like once I removed the IUD to work on my limiting beliefs of realizing that what my body is capable of and reading about every self-help book, listening to a lot of podcasts, the woman that was done that before, and then getting a health coach for myself because I realized, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I can read all the information and I can get into things that is not even matter, or I can just hire someone who has done this and they can teach me. I do value that a lot. And I'm so happy that now there are coaches for literally every aspect of life that you don't need to go through this struggle anymore. Like
Mhm.
you can struggle 5 years and or lose the weight that you're in, or you can just hire someone and change your life in 6 months, which is so profound. And I think
Yes.
we're living in a beautiful era for that. So with that hormone health coach, everything that I read and then take the certification, it taught me, like I said, this is very simple. Like I was so happy, but I was so mad at the same time. So I said, okay, you know what? I want all the women to have access to this because I felt so helpless. I didn't realize that there is another way of preventing pregnancy. I thought our birth control is the only option we have. And I thought I could just get pregnant any time of the day, which is so, when I take a look at it right now, is that ignorance? Is it uneducation? I think it's combination of all
Mhm.
probably. But now the realizing that no, I can only get pregnant, like I am only ovulating in that like 12 to 24 hours. And yes, sperm can live 5 to 6 days, but like what a short window when you take a look at 30 days. So why are we being so scared from our bodies and trying to shut her down and not really leaning to learning to her. Once I removed the IUD, my brain fog cleared. I had a lot more energy and I had a lot more compassion. My love meter, I was always a person that, was kind. I would say, like, I loved life. I loved to laugh. That kind of amplified by 1,000. Now I have so much love to give. I have never thought that this would be the effect of it. So I think what happened is I have never realized how disconnected I live from my body because I didn't know what it meant to live here. So I want to make sure that the woman realize that at the moment you're here, but you can be here. And I promise you that within 3 to 6 to 9 months, in a year top, that you will be here and you're going to look back in your life and you're going to say, wow, why didn't I do this earlier?
Yes.
So that's what I do. But I will say that when people ask me, like, oh, what is your program about? My program it's not about hormones, it's not about menstrual cycle, it's really about mindfulness. How can you be mindful and aware of your body's subtle cues? How can you be aware of what's happening around you, what type of building you're living in, what type of toxicity you're exposed to? And when you go to grocery, how can you be aware what to choose and what to pick? And how can you be aware you're not self-sabotaging yourself? You're not being taken advantage in your relationships. Because once you bring that awareness, everything just kind of expands and changes. So I can teach you everything about your hormones, but if you're not aware, you're going to miss it. You're not going to realize what's happening. So that's why I dive into with my clients, just the mindfulness, mindfulness, mindfulness. Of course, education around it. So they also have an understanding of what's really happening with their body. And I'll tell you, it's not that hard to understand. We can all do it. If you can learn another language, especially, you can learn the language of your body.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Zach says that awareness is the birthplace of choice. And I love that saying because that is everything. We have been in a dormant state for so long, not aware of so many things that we cannot blame ourselves because we grew up, like you said, thinking that that packaged food is a privilege. So we grew up in this environment with all this massive message of what's best comes in packages, of what's best is quick fixes and what's easier, right? So we just need to bring awareness to everything now. So we have to be mindful. Yeah, that is the power of being a change agent, is to bring awareness, be conscious of the power that lies within, that we can not change only our lives, but we can also change the environment, like I said. Oh, so beautiful. I love that your husband built those houses. That is mind blowing.
Learned so much from that. I learned so much that I wasn't questioning. Because when you don't know also what to question, I guess you're just living, just like you said, you're just living in your own lane. And what happens is once you become aware, then you're aware for the rest of your life. And I do believe that the energy that you attract people in the same frequency. So whoever that comes in your life with that awareness, they have the same awareness around things. And then your conversation starts to change. You start having more mindful conversations. And then you catching yourself, okay, this is now my new me. So what I need to do is really trust me. I don't need to ask A, B, C, D what I'm going to do with my life. I can just ask me because I have this awareness about everything and realizing that you have all the answers within you that shut down the noise about what you should be eating, how many times you should work out, what type of vacation that you should be having, and how you should raise your child. No, you don't live in other people's compasses. You live with your own compass. And I think that is this intuition, right? Intuitive living. That is what really changed my life and is changing the client's life because there's just so much information out there. Once you learn to hash them all out and you don't have to worry about it, I live with my own awareness.
Yeah. So you only need to pay attention to your body.
Mhm.
Yeah. And be in sync with that. And that's the key. Oh, I love that. Great. So tell people where they can find you if they want to work with you and
Okay. They can find me on, I will say, on Instagram. My company called State of Balance, because it's everything is a balance. And when I say balance, I don't mean that everything needs to be in a perfect measurement, because the balance that you have in the season of your life, the balance you have when you're a new mom, or the balance you have when you're a single woman are completely different. But if we can find what priorities are during that season of our lives, we can change the way that we live. So that's where it's coming from, a state of balance. And my Instagram is a state of Fulden.
okay.
But if they will just put my Fulden Wernli, there are not that many Fuldens out there. So it will just show up. And I'm so happy that we were able to have this conversation without any interruption. So that's also, I think, once someone wants something, I do believe that they are resourceful enough to get to that. So I'm not even worried about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. It was lovely to connect. And I'll put all your Instagram and everything, all the information in the show notes to make it easier for people to find you.
Awesome.
Yeah, keep doing this beautiful work that you're doing. And I hope your husband would be very successful in his business, because it's a beautiful way of making houses and doing business. It's lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. I appreciate it. Thank you. And you're a wonderful host, I have to say. Your
Oh,
reflections and your mirroring, it's so wonderful that how you're able to bring the topics back and really capture the essence of what I'm saying and highlighting that and kind of going on the road to extract what is the heart of the matter. And that's a beautiful skill set to have.
oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for listening. It means a lot to me that you chose to be here. To help Mama Terra's mission of making the world a disease-free place for generations to come, you can follow the show, write a review, or talk to your friends about it. You can also subscribe to my newsletter. Every week, I craft good health and wellness tips, recipes, and book recommendations with love and care, just for you. My intention is to give you information and resources to help you make good choices and feel well. Find the link to subscribe in the show notes. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you again for being here. We have lots of new episodes coming up, so stay tuned. And remember, good is what makes you feel well.
Transcende, levita, toma banho de cachoeira, abraça uma pessoa amiga, corre na chuva, escala